Why do we build business continuity? First and foremost, to minimize losses, to protect our reputation, and to ensure the continuation of key functions.
If we talk about companies where there is currently no business continuity planning at all, the first request and everything starts with the management.
Making plans and just putting them in a drawer is a waste of money and lost time.
Now, in our current reality, this is not just some theory, this is our reality, because the risks, especially during a full-scale invasion, are extremely high. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Boards of Directors with Sergiy Bulavin channel. Today, our guests are Dmytro Kozlov and Aleksander Moskal. In previous episodes, which you have seen, we have occasionally referred to business continuity planning or business continuity management, BCM or BCP. These refer to dealing with business continuity. And that's exactly why we invited Aleksander. Aleksander has extensive expertise in this field. For more than 15 years, he has been involved in resilience management and business continuity management. Aleksander, welcome.
Welcome, Aleksander. Hello, Sergey.
Greetings, colleagues. Thank you for the invitation. Introductory steps. What is the business continuity as it's named in international business terminology? It is the ability of a company to continue operating its critical services that provide essential services to clients, or to quickly restore them, or to transfer them from one team to another, from one city to another, from one country to another, in a predetermined and described manner, which will be part of the response plan for unforeseen situations. These unforeseen situations can be a sudden power outage at a facility where there is no generator, or for example, a sudden loss of the cellular network, or a mass illness among employees, including key personnel, or the absence of employees, that is, the absence of key staff. This is what is analyzed.
In our business, there can also be strikes by shaheds or missiles hitting the facility.
It can happen, but this can be compared to natural disasters, for example, when, a facility or office becomes unsuitable for further operations. And so these operations need to be relocated somewhere or stopped. And then you thank all your clients and say, sorry, we are closing. We have no way out of this situation. If we have such a plan, we can move part of the production. And again, there is no business continuity plan that addresses all threats and can be used in every situation to guarantee success. Currently, this area is developing. It's called adaptive business continuity. I'll talk about it a bit later. But even in adaptive business continuity, not everything can be anticipated. However, there are things that can be foreseen. There are threats that circulate around us, and we can see them. If we can adequately prepare for them, identify which of them are truly critical for us, and have an operational recovery plan in place in case that threat unfortunately materializes, then we are in this way effectively building the inherent resilience of our business. That's it.
Am I right in understanding, that yes, there really are a lot of risks and you can't account for all of them, but you also need to assess the likelihood, and we have prioritization?
Yes. Why are we building business continuity? First and foremost, to minimize losses, to protect our reputation, and to ensure the continuation of key functions that produce essential products or provide critical services to clients. Then comes the term business continuity management, which means managing business continuity. We said that business continuity is the ability to keep going, but what does managing this ability mean? It is a set of steps, procedures, and plans that allow you to build an entire system within the company, which will include crisis management, management of crisis situations, and management of incidents that may escalate into situations requiring the activation of the business continuity plan. It is a system that brings together different areas.
On the one hand, a business continuity plan can be an instruction on what to do in the event of a certain situation, and on the other hand, it can be a strategic initiative, a list of strategic initiatives that need to be implemented in order to be prepared for such an incident. But what is it really? Which is it closer to?
A business continuity plan is closer to responding to unforeseen situations that have...
It's an instruction.
An instruction, yes. Because what we're talking about, for example, predicting geopolitical changes or forecasting currency fluctuations and so on. This is handled by strategic and financial risk management, and their documents are not called business continuity plans. They may be formally referred to as contingency plans, which specifically means detailed plans designed for the continuation of essential business operations or the development of alternative business scenarios. That's it. So, in simple terms, if I have a car but it's already old, my business continuity plan is the instruction manual for how to repair it. And my strategic plan is to buy a new car because I need it and I can't afford for it to break down so often. The life cycle of a business continuity planning system. Everything starts with analysis. This analysis is called business impact analysis. The abbreviation BIA is very often used. You might have heard of it. BIA is essentially an analysis of the impact on the business.
Aleksander, am I right in understanding that if we're talking about companies where there is currently no business continuity planning at all, then the initial request and everything starts with the management, right? With the CEO or the owner. The request should come from them to the top management in order to formulate those strategic objectives and then to start developing the plan. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. And this is actually the first phase of the so-called business impact analysis at the strategic level. The management, the company leader, and their board of directors or executive board have decided that we need to define and have a business continuity plan. And so they determine the scope, the extent that this plan should cover. And they also provide recommendations regarding possible potential losses.
If we consider a company that, for example, has a board of directors, of course, this plan will also require certain expenditures. Therefore, in any case, it will have to go through certain approvals with the board of directors.
Absolutely so.
On the other hand, I have witnessed cases where it was actually the board of directors who initiated this process, the process of developing a business continuity plan.
And that's exactly how it should be. Then this is formalized into a policy. Next, a project team is created for that policy. This project team creates an implementation program, a project plan, so to speak. Yes. And then it proceeds step by step from there. So, okay, we've been given the products, we've been given the locations. We break them down into business processes, tools, personnel, and so on. And first, we analyze the impact of process stoppages on these products. We were also told that this product cannot be unavailable for more than 4 hours. So we have established timeframes, and at the crucial stage of business impact analysis, we already obtain a very specific and detailed scope of those services, critical processes, and necessary tools, as well as all involved personnel and the relevant third parties that are involved in the production process, all of which have been identified as an integral part of the strategy related to business continuity management system. But this is only the initial step. Next comes RIA. Risk identification and assessment, that is, the identification and assessment of risks. Very often this phase is called risk management or risk assessment. But neither is correct because risk assessment does not happen without identification. Risks need to be identified first and only then assessed. Not assessed right away because many of them may be irrelevant.
Am I right in understanding that earlier I asked you about probability, right? At this stage, we actually measure the probability of a particular risk.
Probability is used to assess risk because risk is a measurement on itself, and this may be a surprise to many people. Next, having completed all this analysis, both the BIA and the risk assessment, we combine them and end up with a final list of those critical processes, tools, personnel, facilities, and so on that are necessary for producing critical products or providing critical services. And for these, we model different scenarios and develop so-called recovery strategies. The project team sits down and develops, analyzes those different scenarios. Then those scenarios are grouped, presented to top management, and top management may reject some of them or add their own. All of this is processed and then it goes into the plan design, where the things that can be done immediately are done and the things that need to be purchased are bought. Then all of this is formalized into a document. And after that, this document, the business continuity plan, must be maintained and tested, because making a plan and just putting it in a desk drawer is a waste of money and lost time. Every comprehensive plan must be thoroughly tested at least annually, or after any significant changes to business processes, the overall business model, the evolving threat landscape, and so on. And this maintenance includes reviewing all of these steps again. Why did I point the arrow at the BIA? Because when we do, say, an annual review, even if nothing has changed, the processes haven't changed, we still start by opening the BIA and checking if it's up to date, because it might turn out that it's no longer relevant since certain processes may have been automated or outsourced to third parties. And when processes are outsourced to third parties, we exclude them from our business continuity plan. We require that the third party has a plan. We require that the objectives we set at the BIA and RIA stages are achievable by the third party. If they are unattainable, that poses a risk for us. And then we modify the plan. But in any case, we lay out this entire chain every year at a minimum, or during any review initiated by management, for example, if we have changed the business model, or if the criticality of products has changed, and so on. This is the life cycle. The next step I suggest we move on to is risk identification and assessment. We have already discussed this phase in the general context of reviewing the business continuity planning cycle. I'll just add here that this particular phase specifically focuses more intently on the potential risks and inherent challenges associated with those critical elements that were initially identified during the comprehensive BIA stage. We do not include risks here that cannot cause harm. If we are talking about critical products, means of production, resources, third-party services, internal resources such as applications, networks, and so on, then during the identification and assessment of risks, attention is paid to those risks that, if materialized, could harm the elements identified at the BIA stage. And there are many things you can do with risks. Risks can be mitigated, for example, by implementing certain one-time actions. For instance, we can mitigate the risk of a fire in the office if we purchase a sufficient number of fire extinguishers. In the plan, in the instructions on how to use it, there will only be a few words about how the fire extinguisher works, where it is located, and who has been trained to use them. But if they are not there, then that's a risk. This is a threat that, if it materializes, if the threat of fire materializes, will have a major impact on the business. That's just a practical example. Therefore, risks can also be transferred to a third party, that is, by ensuring key business products and their business processes. If there is a significant threat that causes a critical process to stop, our financial losses will be fully compensated by the insurance company.
And who exactly, precisely prioritizes these various risks? Who truly decides that this particular risk is indeed urgent and seriously significant, and that another one is perhaps not quite so urgent or pressing? Do we outsource this risk, or perhaps share the inherent risk with someone else through a comprehensive insurance policy, or keep this specific one for ourselves?
That's a very good question. Thank you. The project team that implements the business continuity management system goes through all stages of analysis and models different scenarios. They assess various threats and propose different solutions. Of course, it's necessary to prepare some kind of summary report. All of this should be on the table for top management, and the board reviews it. Okay, we have these threats, and the project team proposes these solutions. The project team sees these risks. We see it a bit differently, or we see it the same way, but we don't agree with the budget, so we decide that we will accept this, and this risk. We register it. Very often corporations do this. They have their own enterprise risk management system, so-called, meaning a system where all risks associated with the organization are registered. We register and monitor these risks. We monitor whether, over time, their probability or impact changes. And as soon as they start to increase, either in terms of impact or probability, only then will we invest in reducing or mitigating them, whether through business continuity planning or specific projects that will help to mitigate this particular risk. Therefore, this is a decision for the board, while the proposals are prepared by the project team. Next, everything we have gathered during the analysis stage and the development of solution strategies, all the actions we will take in the event of risks materializing that are related to the interruption of business processes. This is all described in the document. The document must necessarily contain information, contact details, and information about who should be involved and what roles they play in the event of a risk of stoppage materializing, as well as where these procedures are located, because the plan itself may also include some technical procedures and so on. Where can the disaster recovery plan be found? Who is responsible for each of the procedures? Next, we need to train the staff and give them the opportunity to read it. We may have different levels of awareness regarding the plan. The entire organization should know that we have a plan, and this organization should have a brief understanding of which scenarios this plan covers. The entire organization should know that if we see a risk and it is not included in the plan, the same information is still available. There are such and such risks that have been taken into account and are covered by the business continuity plan, but every employee must have a formally assigned responsibility to report any new risks.
And who is it that initiates the activation of the overall plan? So let's say something happens.
If there is a crisis committee, then the crisis committee deals with what is called an emergency situation.
And may I correct you? Because, well, let's be honest, if we're talking about private businesses and not large corporations, then most likely there won't be such a thing as a crisis committee. There's an owner who might also be the CEO, or the CEO could be a separate person, and then there's the team. So whose responsibility is it?
The owner should approve the launch of the plan, but initiating the process, that is, gathering the team, The business continuity plan should have its own owner, and most likely that will be the head of the business continuity team. Actually, there should be people from different roles, from different departments, and one of them is appointed as the leader of this team, yes. Although formally they have other duties in the company and have their own managers. But in the context of a crisis situation, when we might plausibly need to activate the business continuity plan, this person manages the entire process, starting with the analytical phase. What exactly happened? Does it match? Is it covered by the scenarios we have in our plan?
Now, in our current reality, this is not just some theory, not just the need to think about it and plan certain steps in case some issues arise. This is our reality because the risks, of course, during a full-scale invasion are extremely high. And this can significantly affect the company's operations and its prospects for recovery if you are not prepared for it. So, thank you very much. And one last question, if I may. I'm sure our listeners will also be interested in questions about budgets, right? So, how large of a budget is needed to create a BCP plan, and to what extent does this preparation actually require funding?
To answer this question, I'll say this. A BIA can even show results indicating that a business continuity plan isn't needed because there's nothing particularly critical. The threats have been assessed as low probability and so on. That's theoretically, yes. I'm not talking about the situation with the full-scale invasion right now, but such situations do happen. Rarely, but they do happen. And accordingly, no investments are made. It may turn out that everything we need to build the main strategies for the scenario we've identified, to be prepared for the threats we've identified that have a high probability and a high impact on our business, we already have, or there's just one thing missing that we need to purchase, and the cost will be insignificant. Or it may indeed turn out that we will need to invest a significant amount, but certainly not more than the substantial level of losses that would inevitably occur if we are completely unprepared for such an event. That's why BIA provides an answer to this question. If during a week we stop, or say for 2 weeks we halt production and nothing happens, at least because our client always has a stockpile, since they buy from us in advance, then we can activate a third shift and catch up on the products we didn't finish during the downtime. So this can also clearly signal that if the financial losses incurred are truly minimal, then why would one invest in some expensive, additional generators and other similar infrastructure, especially if the potential losses simply aren't worth the significant investment. Therefore, it is crucial that any investments made should not, in any way, exceed the actual losses we are attempting to prevent from occurring.
I wanted to thank you, my friend, for a very professional discussion. Well, you're an awesome professional, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dima. Thank you, colleagues.
And of course, the presentation will be available for download from your website. And in case of additional questions, I suppose listeners can contact you directly using the contacts that will be in the presentation on the website.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again on the boards of directors with Sergiy Bulavin channel.